Hello, friends. Greetings from NSN Hyderabad. I hope you have been watching our interviews with the heads of sector skill councils in India. To continue with these skill talks, today we have with us Dr. Satyendra Arya, who is the CEO of Agriculture Skill Council of India. Welcome to this talk, sir. We are very happy to have you today, and we would like to learn a lot about the Agriculture Sector Skill Council through this talk.
So thanks for inviting me, Madhuri. It's always a pleasure to interact with your magazine as well as you. And I think your publication and this NSN has come a long way in last 6 or 7 years. And I think you don't have any competitor. And it's a good thing that you have started interacting with a couple of my colleagues, knowing their sector. So shoot your questions. I'll be more than happy to share whatever little bit of knowledge I can share with you.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah, we have been consistently trying to promote skills, create awareness for the last 6 years, and you have been one of our well wishers right from the day we started. Thanks a lot for being with us. Sir, so to get started today, it is inevitable that we have to speak about the impact of COVID-19, which is all over, all pervasive, and it is so unprecedented. So how is it being handled in the agriculture industry with in terms of skill development and in terms of preparing youth for jobs?
So just to share with you, as you might be aware that agriculture is being projected or being seen as a savior in this times of pandemic last year and this year as well. In fact, quite a lot of people who returned back to their native places started engaging themselves in agriculture, and compounded by the fact that there were a lot of apprehensions, so as to say, last year when harvesting season was just getting into place, and when the COVID lockdown was announced in the last week of March 2020. But it did not impact that much in terms of availability of labor, because wherever the harvesting operations were there, they could get the manpower supply from some of the peri-urban areas, and from the industrial areas. Those workers moved there. Yes, there was an impact and disruption of supply chains and fruits and vegetables, getting spoiled for a brief period of time. But as it was very well handled in terms of the online supplies and platform, just filling up that particular gap, and an immediate improvement was there. So harvesting operations in both the years have not got impacted that much, and it is also evidenced by the fact that in spite of not such a you know a big monsoon improvement last year, this year, at the end of last fiscal, we are almost expecting a yield of 305 million metric tons, which is a record in itself. And also, we are very encouraged by the fact that agriculture this year is expected to contribute almost 19.5 to 19.9% of the entire GDP. So agriculture that way has been savior. It has not been much impacted. But yes, are many changes which has happened in the last pandemic year. By there are couple of great reforms which have been of course, there are differing opinions about those reforms, but yes, they are a real game changer in terms of the APMC rules getting changed, or there is also how the produce can be brought and sold off outside the mandi. There are changes in the Commodities Management Act. So these reforms are going to go a long way in getting the right kind of prices for the farmers, and also bring stability. And So I think there are going to be new sets of demand in terms of the skills sets which are needed, and what should be the priority. Uh, so that's where we stand.
Okay. So since you mentioned the new sets of demand, industry demand, and the need for new ways of skilling, how is it? How do you foresee in future what kind of skills are needed? And at the same time, I would like to know more from you about how skilling is being continued during the pandemic, during the time when the centers are closed and there are many other limitations under which we are working.
So, let me start from the fact, what is the situation of skilling going on? Of
Mhm.
course, we need to be, aware about the very fact and sensitized to the fact that the health comes first.
Yeah.
Now that we have faced two waves, one wave last year and this in the second wave, which is at the verge of, getting closed, hopefully. So those challenges have been there. So we have gone by the strict guidelines of the government in terms of the educational institutes, the guidelines which come from various states from time to time. And in between, between August last year to this, March this year, of course, there was opening up. The trainings have happened, the assessment. So our first priority last year was to complete the pending programs, which were, struck up almost for a period of say 3 to 4 years, get completed those batches, and also the assessment which were in the pipeline. In between, yes, there, because when there is a need, there is always some kind of push towards doing new things, and everybody has started now moving to online. The theory part, which was to be imparted, more and more online content slightly getting generated. Yes, the pace might be differing from sector to sector.
Mhm.
Naturally, it's very easy for a sector like electronics or IT or telecom to go entirely online, whereas it is like for informal sector like agriculture, handicrafts, construction. These things are going to take a lot of time. But yes, the so-called blended learning or blended mode of assessment can always be helpful. So, but these things are getting developed. So it is not a ready-made mixed formula that okay, we will start, because in our sector at least we need to be sensitized of the fact that our masses are generally illiterate just from the literacy point of view, but they are very, very intelligent to understand. But compounded by the fact that if you want to send them some return material, it is difficult to be understood. Also by the fact that in rural area, agriculture happens in the rural area, so availability of internet resources, bandwidth, app. So it is not so easy. So what you can do is try to deliver the training in a particular location where that particular instrument is there, and you have got couple of people who maintain the safety and hygiene and attend those particular sessions. We are also now it has given a push, and not only to our sector but all the sectors, to come up with the various kind of learning management solutions, and also sharing of the skilling resources, because in India we have got a lot of material which is available, but either it is not maybe collated in a proper way, or we are not sharing. Otherwise, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. In fact, I am very thankful to the Ministry of Agriculture and the Department of Fisheries and the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, who have kindly agreed to share their resources with us, and we are providing the cross links from our website so that anybody who wants to log in, these kind of resources are available to them free of cost.
Yeah.
So these are the things that which are happening. And of course, again, this particular year, the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which is the flagship scheme of Ministry of Skill Development, was coming to an end. The PMKY2 was it has ended last year. The PMKY3 had commenced around October, November, when the things got stabilized, but it is for a very short period of time. And I think the full-fledged program in form of either PMKY4 or PMKY 3.1 would get started maybe around September once, because right now the situation is so flux that everybody is expecting it to be stabilized. There is no hurry. Some things can certainly wait, and but importantly for our sector, the government has been very benevolent and kind, and they have extended all kind of help. So all mandi operations were going on when right now when the produce was coming post harvesting. We are expecting a bumper crop in terms of staples, pulses, and also recently there was a good rain also, which is I think leading going to the good kharif season also. So any kind of rain fed agriculture which is there also going to get benefited. And certainly when this kind of stability and prosperity is there in rural area, then only people are also at peace and cool mind, so that their family members or youngsters can participate on in our skilling programs.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
also right asked me another question, which is around what kind of skill sets are going to be emerging in terms of COVID. So two three things. Just when a lot of online things have started happening, and Amazon getting bigger, of Jeff Bezos becoming the richest person because of this pandemic. So the electronic platforms are getting much more uh, robust.
Yeah.
So when the online marketing is there, so there is a online a different kind of supply chain is going to be there, and more people are going to go to the sourcing basis near the farmer,
Mhm.
and trying to get them engaged through various digital means as well. And people are trying, in fact quite a number of educated people who had gone to their families in the rural area started source selling their produce through these apps. And of course this is just a drop in ocean, but everything starts small and then there is a trickle down effect. So it is very, very important for these people to understand how to engage with these companies who want to reach out to them, or to just to make them aware about that our existence. The producer would like to make his existence known, and what is the USP about his product, or that he is able to give a particular sorted graded product. So these kind of skill set would be needed for a particular producer to be utilizing those kind of digital resource resources, applications, and no high funda applications, just knowing about the market, the set of market where I can sell the produce. It is also linked with the fact that not only pandemic, right now this kind of digital skill sets is going to be needed to make our reforms also quite robust, because we have got not enam the national mandi enam electronic platform is there, which is by the Ministry of Agriculture and through the SFAC, where you can sell your produce through any of the mandis which are there. So once this hesitation goes out of the farmer, he knows that, he doesn't have to be knowing laptop, but if he knows that laptop in the hand of a third person can help him fetch a better price or sell it in time, naturally he would prefer that way. So
Right.
there has to be, he has to be made aware that the government is trying that the traditional method where he was not getting the gains and the middlemen were taking the gains, how can you try to reduce this number of intermediaries, which is very much possible through the digital mode.
Right.
And secondly, the safety and hygiene is another element which is going to get now a lot of emphasis in skilling, is for example the safe produce. Now in this pandemic times, I'm sure how do you collect the milk, in not in terms of shelf life, but now in terms of the kind of clean milk, so that the disease doesn't get passed, or what kind of hygiene a milk delivery person should follow when he's working in these COVID times, not because from his personal perspective, but also the milk cans that he's carrying,
Right.
or the agriculture produce which is getting transported from either from a mandi to a common person's home. So this safety and hygiene thing is very, very important, going to be very, very important. And also the domains in which the skilling is going to be needed. If today we have to design our agriculture programs, and where is that need? So the need is to upskill the farmers to tap this newer methodology of selling their produce. So there are certain changes how the mandi used to operate,
Mhm.
or how he has to get his payment. Say for example, the if we are trying to tap the technology, so one of the things is he should be able to reap the benefit of direct transfer, not only by the government benefits, but also the direct transfer of his the money, the payment for his agriculture produce.
Yeah.
So these kind of things which are going to be needed, and we are fine tuning. And of course, I'll be sharing when you are coming with your print media this kind of our emphasis that what we are going to do.
Okay. Okay, sir, most of what you said just now also applies to self-employment and small entrepreneurs in agriculture. Like you were giving examples of using mobile apps to sell their produce, for example, how they can acquire these digital skills. From the Sector Skill Council, do you already have a curriculum which is helping in this sector? Like I just said, there is a huge scope for entrepreneurship. So are there any skilling programs towards this end right now, sir?
So what happens is, see, you don't have to run a entrepreneurship program separately. It is very, very difficult. It is not like a classroom where you get the farmers to understand or study, undergo an entrepreneurship program. But yes, the financial literacy component has to be a part of every qualification pack. Say, for example, if I'm talking about temperate fruit grower or a staple producer or a dairy farmer or a aquaculturist. So this the marketing of produce and this how to calculate the cost of the produce. These are the elements because every farmer is a micro entrepreneur in the sense because he's running his solo enterprise and also is already taking the business enterprises.
Yeah.
So he is a micro entrepreneur, but not full fledged. He's not a full blown entrepreneur that he has been able to tap into his capabilities. So we have to hone those entrepreneurial skills. He is already a raw entrepreneur, but he has to be uh, just because there are certain costs which never gets calculated. He never calculates. So very important is the financial literacy. And when we talk about the entrepreneurship and how these people aggregate together to get a better return in form of a farmer producer organization, like for example, if you are aware, government of India through NABARD is working towards establishing of 10,000 FPOs. Now, how do the farmers aggregate together as a group
Yeah.
for making this FPO? So there are those skills are we have made a new job role called group farming practitioner, especially for you know if they have to get aggregated as a FPO. So that kind of job role has also come, but we make it sure that most of our job role which are having a self entrepreneurial, because see, in agriculture most of our jobs are not wage based employment, they are self employment.
Right.
So our this particular component has to be part of all our job roles mostly.
Okay. So you just mentioned about wage-based employment. It just occurred to me. We talk a lot about this aim of doubling the farmers' incomes, which is always in the news. So what do you have to say to this from the skilling perspective or from the training perspective? Because this sector, as you said, is low on literacy and low on many aspects, and they need not be always skilled. They could be semi-skilled and still continue with their work. So what is your opinion on this, sir?
See, doubling of farmers' income, one is to get a better yield for your better price for your produce, but the other thing is to reduce the cost of. That is one element of how do you try to increase that particular profitability. But also beside this fact, you need to tell them to mitigate the risk of because say for example, if there is a Vidarbha farmer, how does he reduces his risk is very, very important, um, which is we are able to do it with secondary sources of income.
Yeah.
Very important that in agriculture we have got small farmer economy in India,
Mhm.
and we need to supplement it through allied sources of income like dairy, poultry, fishery, and more of integrated farming, which is needed. So these particular our emphasis is much more going on this allied sector, because or even the changing you know the changing pattern of produce, because if you really need a better produce and the farmer needs to double their income, he has to slightly change their cropping pattern also, maybe going from staple production to horticulture crops. If अगर आज के दिन में if high value agriculture is constituting 75%, by high value agriculture I mean the fruits and vegetables and the dairy, poultry and fishery.
Yeah.
If that is contributing 75% of agriculture GDP, and if there is a huge increase in consumption of dairy, poultry and fishery products in the urban areas, naturally the price play is there, because a farmer would not be able to command that much of, you know, profit for himself if he keeps on doing the traditional crops. So
Yeah.
he needs to change his focus on the horticulture crops and these allied activities to have this doubling of farmers' income. And generally, we are even up within our skilling space, rather than only focusing on staples, we are going into things like the vegetable cultivation for them to get skill. Because sometimes it so happen that in traditional areas which are generally focused on only two crop system of a rabi and a, kharif,
Yeah.
but not thinking about the horticulture produce. And for that matter, even there are states like, which have been the grain, our football, even Punjab and Haryana, we need the focus on skilling on the horticulture crops quite a lot, because there is a change of mindset that is required. So we are going to, skilling from that perspective on the high value agriculture is, I think, very important.
Yeah. So one more thing about this sector skill council, because the mandate for many sector skill councils is also to promote apprenticeship. It was very heartening to see that agriculture sector skill council was also coming up with apprenticeship promotion. So how was it? How was the response? How did you go about doing this? Because this would be slightly different in agriculture sector when compared to the organized kind of industries.
So we are making it just a small beginning, we are not doing any huge numbers over there.
Okay.
So see, as far as the farm mechanization sector was concerned, the tractor manufacturing companies, they were taking apprenticeship. The kids were coming from ITIs previously,
Mhm.
but now we are developing certain, new curriculums for apprenticeship, which are around landscaping and gardening, which are around, right now, say for example, we are working on the milk delivery, like milk booths. No, earlier we never thought that we can take apprenticeship through the milk booth. So these, some of the, or for micro irrigation technician, certain micro irrigation companies want to take apprenticeship in the micro irrigation technician. So, we have developed almost, 16 job roles where we have developed the curriculum from apprenticeship perspective. In the first year, we had hardly, about 47 apprentices. The second year, we have now closed almost around 857. So it's a huge growth for us, but still very, very far away from the other sector. But the satisfaction for us is we have started it, and it once it gets started, I mean, there is nothing which can stop the change. So everybody has to just, he has to develop a taste for it.
Mhm.
The fact is, people are not aware. Still, a lot of awareness efforts are needed from the sector skill council and the various other stakeholders within the industry to make those changes aware to the organizations. What kind of changes have happened in the last 5 years? Still, many of the companies are not aware about it. So
Mhm.
we are, trying to do those things. For example, with even with NCML, we are in discussion for having certain apprentices in the agri warehousing sector. So we will keep on working on it.
Yeah, that's very interesting because this will be a breakthrough in this particular industry, like you said, and mostly it's happening for the first time. So, along with this, we also see a lot of technology impact in agriculture, like right from using the drones to using like various farm mechanization kind of things. And then also, I think technologies like artificial intelligence and things which are becoming all pervasive, these technologies. So, how do you think this is going to be a part of your curriculum, let's say in the coming months or in the years?
So see, technology is impacting all facets of life, and agriculture is not an exception.
Yeah.
So, and certainly the agribusiness is going to flourish using any kind of digital technology, right from across the entire value chain, from sourcing to marketing.
Hmm.
So, various elements are there. Only thing is, we have to keep it in mind that ours is a small and fragmented land holding. So the economic viability of the technology is very, very important, and so is the what is the literacy level, because the low literacy level is something which can impact, but certainly the benefits sometimes are, if a farmer is able to see, then you are able to do that particularly. But certainly, our focus is going to be how do we make use of technology in small pieces.
Yeah.
Say for example, the good agriculture practices can also you know be benefited by the real flow of data in the company office. So they can try to the they can, if they have got the data, they can actually help the farmers with good agriculture practices.
Yeah.
And also, the low cost farm mechanization is very, very important in a country like India. We don't need massive machinery, but small machinery, even a rice planter for that matter. If I'm able to skill some people in that, so our sisters would be benefited, and they would be saved the trouble of, those back breaking, exercise of rice planting. So, just a use of rice planter.
Yeah.
Also, things like GIS mapping of soil fertility, you can even and analyze that. So there are emerging trends which are there in terms of automated techniques, which can actually lead to better execution and productivity enhancement. Or also there are artificial intelligence. How do you put all factors, say for example, how the climate is there, how is the monsoon going to be there, what is the thunderstorm is going to be there. And some, we can always come with various kind of business models to predict and give the right side of advisory. And so is the data analytics also related. And we can all actually, based on this data analytics, we can always redesign our business models and come out with customized solutions. And technology is, of course, of you, and there are very good examples. For example, the commerce commercial activities through mobile,
Yeah.
or also the e-auction platform. This is also a technology play. How do you do the auction? Say for example, आप कोटा के rates को you are able to access through technology in a real time in some other region of Rajasthan,
Yeah.
and actually sell your produce is also play of technology. Or the e-payments, for example, and right now I was reading yesterday Economic Times, Paytm coming with a big IPO. Now e-payments are needed for farmers also, and there are certain banks which started with milk producers, and they were getting their payments in real time basis. They don't have to wait for months for their credit. So these are or even for that matter, smartphone. You take a photo of your infested crop, and you send it to either a institution, or a, say for example, IFCO Kisan call center, and they are able to give the right set of advisory back. So this is also a technology play.
Yeah.
For example, even the nutrient application through the micro irrigation tubes, this is also the it reduces a lot of wastage. So technology has got its own benefit, and sometimes this is exaggerated that technology is going to lead to job losses. It's we are not, first thing, our things are not that automated that it's going to lead to some kind of job. Secondly, our technology is going to actually make up for the natural attrition which is happening in agriculture sector.
Mhm.
If tomorrow uh, some workers stop coming from the eastern side to Punjab and Haryana, and they are more than, and which is good also, that in their own place of stay they are able to do this agriculture. So
Mhm.
naturally things should not get impacted over here. Only thing is that we need to upskill and reskill the thing. So if there are lower range of job roles which are there, by lower range I mean NSQF level, not
Yeah.
this, the work that they do is very, very important. But say for example, if there are NSQF level 3 and 4, then they need upskilling. Whereas the people, if there are managerial resources or supervisory resources, they might need the entire thing to be reskilled. From entire thing has to be reskilled. So we don't see major losses. We see a lot of increased productivity and efficiency. And very important thing, agriculture technology is going to make uh, agriculture appealing to the youth.
Right.
The rural youth has got also aspirations like a urban youth. He wants to wear a jeans. He wants to have a smart Android phone.
Mm.
If he is able to see agriculture as a technology oriented job,
Yeah.
then it would appeal him. It would lead to glamorization. The challenge is agriculture people don't find glamorous enough. So they find it glamorous enough to earn only 8,000 rupees or 7,000 rupees by doing some mundane activity in a in an urban area rather than having two milk cows and earning almost 14,000 rupees.
Mm.
So somewhere we need to show that technology is leading to reduction of drudgery and make it will be making it more appealing to the youth.
Yes. Yes, sir. I think that was a really wonderful explanation about the technology impact on agriculture and how agri-tech businesses are coming up. And I'm sure whoever's watching this conversation will get more ideas for your startups. As Dr. Arya has just mentioned, so many avenues where you can come up with a new startup and make agriculture very aspirational for youth, as Sir was just saying, because we need to really attract a lot of youth, and that might also help us in reducing migration to cities, to urban areas, which is not very aspirational for most of them. They do it out of force. Besides this delineation about the technology impact on agriculture and scope, is there something else that you would like to add in terms of, let's say, if I have to ask you, what are the top 5 job roles today in agriculture? What would they be according to you?
See, uh, right now it is it has been generally supply led. Our programs have been supply led. So where the training centers are coming. Now this orientation is changing,
Hmm.
and it is just recently in the last 1 year that bottoms up approach is going to come, and this the demand from districts
Yeah.
are going to come. Of course, our maximum trainings have happened in dairy farming, gardening, and organic farming, but those numbers are not reflective of actual demand, because
Hmm.
we are a far away right now from people saying that I want training in this particular program.
Okay. Hmm.
Right now it is basically which kind of training centers are available in that particular area.
Yeah. So it is still lying in the supply driven kind of a
Yeah,
format.
that's why I would be hesitant to give you the which are this one. So that might not be the need of the economy right now. We would like people to go for the new generation job roles and new ups. See, I think going forward, it is not the entire training in a particular job role. You need to have upskilling programs through certain competencies, short-term module program of 6 days, 7 days,
Yeah.
some kind of RPL with bridge training, so that you are aware, okay, this particular region people are already knowing this particular aspect. I need to orient them on, say, safe usage of pesticides, or maybe I go to the Maharashtra, say Nasik region, and say I tell the vineyard growers how to use the drone for application of fungicides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just mentioned about RPL. I think this is a very important aspect in this informal sector skilling, particularly agriculture. Would you want to say something about the impact or the importance of RPL in the agriculture sector skilling?
So Madhuri, very very important. In fact, uh, sometimes people say any RPL can lead to income enhancement, and that's why in a organized setup,
Yeah.
a RPL would not lead to that much of benefit as it can lead to an informal sector like agriculture. And anyway, Honorable Prime Minister always bought this program of RPL for the informal sector, and agriculture is the largest constituent.
Yeah.
First and most important aspect, RPL leads to the vocationalization of this sector. You
Mm.
know, Otherwise, agriculture is not perceived as a vocation. There is no vocational identity. So
Yeah.
RPL is giving vocational identity. That's number one. Number two, With this vocational identity, you get the access to credit. If I'm having a RPL and I say I am a dairy farmer of Gujarat, or I'm say I am a aquaculture farmer of Andhra Pradesh, if I approach my bank with the RPL certificate, I get that particular credit. Third is access to market. If today XYZ company, big size, small size, if they are coming to a particular new region to take certain produce, say for example tomato from say for a peri-urban area of Bangalore, if I know that there is a skilled farmer who knows about this vegetable production, certainly my first port of call, at least he would be knowing certain post-harvest practices, I will take that. So the access to market also is there, and of course I'm not touching upon right now non it is a big uh, tool against non-tariff barriers. Say for example, tomorrow some particular XYZ country says, we don't want to import the goat meat from here, but if you say no, it's coming from a skilled goat farmer who must have practiced all kind of hygienic practices, it becomes difficult for them to introduce non-tariff barrier. And in agriculture, the RPL can also play a very, very important role in recognizing. See, most of the agriculture now, and especially in dairy farming, I would say if I would go to the extent of that dairy farming is looked after 75 to 80% by women only.
Yeah.
Okay, there might not be study, but it's very, very evident. And of course, we are going to do that particular aspect. Everybody is aware about the contribution of women to the allied activities being done.
Yeah.
But RPL, of say for example, women dairy farmers can lead to recognition of this, recognizing the woman as an economic productive unit.
Yeah.
So if we start counting those as dairy farmer, women dairy farmer, so they get counted in the economic matrices. So we recognize them as economic productive unit. So
Yeah.
there are many things, and I'm not right now talking about that. If there is a bridge training along with RPL, it can lead to the financial literacy, the digital literacy, and all kind of upskilling. So in agriculture and informal sector, agriculture is RPL with bridge training is very, very important. It's far more relevant to the informal sector than you know uh, with no offense meant to the organized sector. How does it benefit to give a RPL certificate for somebody who is already in organized job and having XYZ designation?
Yes, that's true. And also, like you said very rightly, here it also offers a huge advantage and an opportunity to women to join the formal workforce, especially those who are in the rural areas, if they can benefit, through these RPL programs. For those of you who are not aware of RPL, RPL stands for Recognition of Prior Learning. And this is a very important way to bring in the informal workforce into the formal sector, formalizing them and making them more organized. So, besides this, I also would like to know from you about, let's say, for example, we have lot of very national level schemes and initiatives like Atmanirbhar Bharat, and vocal for local, and missions and schemes like this, where agriculture and rural economy has a huge potential to contribute. And on the other hand, you also mentioned about attracting youth. So these are like dots, spread across everywhere. Is there a way we can connect these dots, and what would be your message to young people to contribute to the rural and the local economy?
Say for first thing we keep on talking about, employment challenge which is there. So, but I think in this COVID times, it is evident that I'm sure the youth also would have realized that if it is always beneficial if somebody is able to get a job near his or her own home and with the family. Uh, you know, what happens is certainly if we are able to make them aware, Atam Nirbhar Bharat. So it is Atam Nirbhar Bharat. If you translate and just come. So it is a Atam Nirbhar Gaon also. It is a Atam Nirbhar Jila also,
Mhm.
right? So if they are self-sufficient, there are in Atam Nirbhar Bharat there is whole lot of uh, things which have been made available in terms of infrastructure, the funds, the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, or the infrastructure fund which has been created through NABARD. all these particular steps are actually trying to make every aspect of urban and rural India self-sufficient.
Mhm.
And it can only happen if we make the local units like a village or a district, you know, self-dependent in all aspects.
Yeah.
So a youth has to look out for opportunities there itself. It will also prevent, the fallout effects of the urban migration.
Mhm.
So I'm not touching upon because this is a big topic of the retention of youth in agriculture and Atmanirbhar Bharat. But the steps which are there, the schemes which have been done announced under Atmanirbhar Bharat, all aspects. Say for example, for the dairy, poultry, fishery. When I'm talking about agriculture, horticulture, apiculture.
Yeah.
So when there is a financial layout which has been made for them, it is making that credit availability and giving them a lot of entrepreneurial scope within the villages. And I'm sure the youth is going to tap into this. And one once people either one particular youth, it becomes a successful entrepreneur, the others follow.
Yeah.
It's very important that retention of youth in agriculture. This problem is not only in India; it's a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
So by making the credit availability and the technological orientation that we are trying to give, I think these dots are going to get connected, Madhuri.
Okay. So before we close, my last question to you would be about the training of trainers and capacity building in this particular sector. I'm also referring to the new education policy, which is talking very strongly about integrating vocational with the mainstream education, which means we are going to have hopefully more courses at the school level also. Right now, also we have few of them, but perhaps more would come up. So, in such a scenario, how would you see capacity building as a challenge and the role for agriculture sector skill council? How is it going to be in attracting people to become good trainers? It could be somebody who's very good at beekeeping, or it could be somebody who's been running a poultry farm very successfully. So, all these people are a part of your sector. So, what is
So
your
a very, very interesting question. So of course, I am not going to touch upon training of trainers, how it is conducted or not conducted. But yes, for us, a sector like us, it makes a lot of sense. So our training of trainers criteria is not about a PhD or master's alone. It gives due weightage to the experience.
yeah?
So a person, if he is experienced enough and has got lower level of the academic qualification, it makes sense for us. For example, as you rightly said, if it is for gardening or vineyard or vegetable growing, those kind of trainers, so we are more than happy to uh, train and certify. Basically they need to be taught how to deliver their sessions and
Yeah.
become a good trainer. So that is very, very uh, there are as other sector skill councils might have talked, there are academies of excellence which are coming, but in agriculture sector we have got a slight difference. Our training of trainers are not happening too much on the this private training partner centers, because we need good domain trainers which are available in our agriculture and veterinary industry. So we have got our Agriculture Skill Council of India has got a tie-up with an understanding with almost 50 plus agriculture and veterinary industry, where we conduct our training of trainers program either in a residential program or in an online mode. But yes, for us, experience matters a lot. We are present there both in the school education and uh, in the community college and BWork program.
Yeah.
In fact, we are running agriculture programs in 9th, 10th, and 11th, 12th standard in almost 1700 schools in almost 22 states. So that's one element. And second is, of course, the diploma, advanced diploma, and BWork program in various domains of agriculture. We are running it in almost 235 institutions. This last year, of course, lot many educational institutions got added to our kitty, but somewhere the last year COVID and this year COVID actually has not let the assessment happen in a smooth way. So there was a bit of dampener, and I'm sure this educational policy is not something which is for one academic year. It is for the next 20 years, and certainly we are going to pushing towards that particular direction, and we are going to increase our footprint into this space. So we have requested for a dialogue with UGC, and trying to talk with all the, we are in touch with various, even private universities, where how can we can chip in. But here we have to take all sectors have to be on safeguard that, see, a lot of mushrooming of private education as well.
Yeah.
But we need to be very careful about quality so that it is not, the degree or diplomas are not sold off like a commodity,
Mhm.
that in the garb of, say, some certification,
Yeah.
industry backed certification, you can try to push as a substandard academic, degree, in the sense where no actually training is happening, but you have got certain kind of recognition. So one has to be very, very careful which kind of institutions you engage with. Yes, we are more than happy to do our part in terms of making this available. We, all the sector skill councils are, you know, they have been made out of, and they have born out of the public exchequer money, and we are therefore uh, tie up with, or open to contributing to this national education policy in every which way, and
Uh,
our all resources are available for them.
Yeah, great, sir. And also, it was very nice to hear about the way you have your academic and industry academia kind of partnerships for various training programs and others. So besides all that you shared with us today, is there anything else you would like to add by way of something that I missed asking you?
No, 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 nothing for this matter, but only one message. There are a lot of opportunities. Agriculture is not about throwing seed and a plant growing. And we are an exciting sector. We have got 186 job roles. And believe you me, it gives a lot of satisfaction if it is done nicely. It is very remunerative and very satisfying also.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving us your time today. It was a very enlightening talk, and we are grateful to all the farmers who feed us. And this Sector Skill Council is so important to, help them out in every possible way. Thanks a lot. I look forward to be in touch with you.
Thank you, Madhuri. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.